The sign was old, the words "Don't swim here" bleached by sun and scarred by what looked like deep scratches. Below, someone had carved a single, fresher word into the weathered wood: cursed. Jake just laughed, his voice too loud in the twilight hush. Spooky. Probably just the town trying to keep kids out. Maya hugged her arms, the summer air suddenly feeling cold on her skin. I don't know, Jake. It feels quiet. He was already pulling his shirt over his head. That's the point, isn't it? No one else around. He gestured to the lake, a perfect, black mirror reflecting the bruised purple of the evening sky. It was beautiful, unnervingly so. Not a ripple disturbed its surface. Not a single frog croaked, no crickets chirped from the surrounding pines. The silence was a physical presence. An hour later, the moon had risen, a cold silver coin. They were in the water. The initial shock of the cold had worn off, replaced by a deeper, more insidious chill. The water was thick, heavier than water had any right to be. It clung to their skin like oil. It's getting colder, Maya whispered, treading water. Her feet kicked down into nothing but endless, black depth. You're just imagining it, Jake said, but his bravado was thinning. He dove under, a splash that seemed muffled, swallowed by the lake. He was gone for a few seconds too long. When he surfaced, he was gasping, his eyes wide. What? What is it? Maya asked, her heart hammering. Nothing, he shook his head, water flying. Just, thought I saw something. A reflection that wasn't mine. A soft, lapping sound began, not from the shore, but from the center of the lake. A series of concentric rings expanded towards them, as if something had broken the surface far out in the deep. Then the whispering started. It wasn't a sound that traveled through the air, but one that bloomed directly inside their minds. A sibilant, ancient murmur, a language of silt and deep, crushing pressure. It spoke of loneliness, of a cold that never ended, of a hunger that had slept for centuries. Stay, the water seemed to sigh. Join us. We need to get out. Now, Maya said, her voice trembling with a terror so pure it was almost calm. They began to swim for shore, but the water around their limbs grew viscous, resistant. It was like swimming through syrup. Each stroke was a monumental effort. The shore, only 20 yards away, seemed to be receding. Jake cried out first. Something touched my leg. It wasn't a fish. It was long, cold, and sinuous, like a rope of kelp, but it had purpose. It wrapped around his ankle and pulled. Maya turned to help him, but she felt it too, a caress on her calf, then a firm, unyielding grip. She looked down into the black water. For a fleeting second, the moonlight pierced the depths. She didn't see a monster with teeth and scales. She saw faces. Pale, distorted human faces, their features blurred by time and water, their eyes wide and empty. They were a part of the water itself, their limbs trailing like weeds, their mouths open in a silent, eternal scream. They were the lake. And they were hungry. Jake was dragged under. The surface closed over his head with a soft, final gulp. He didn't resurface. His name died in Maya's throat as the grip on her own leg tightened, pulling her down. The water filled her ears, her nose, her mouth. It didn't feel like drowning. It felt like being absorbed. The cold was not the cold of temperature, but the cold of the grave, of timelessness. The whispers were deafening now, a chorus of the damned welcoming a new member. As her consciousness faded, Maya saw him. Jake. His face was already smoothing out, losing its humanity, merging with the other pale, floating shapes. His eyes were open, and they held the same ancient, malevolent emptiness as everything else in the cursed water. He reached for her, not to save her, but to pull her deeper into the collective. On the shore, their towels and clothes lay abandoned. The surface of the lake was once again a perfect, undisturbed black mirror. The silence returned, deeper and more absolute than before. The sign stood its silent vigil. It had warned them. The water was never just water. It was a prison, a consciousness, an ancient hunger. And now, it had two new voices in its whispering depths. waiting for the next swimmers to ignore the warning.